Hello, and welcome to another edition of the NAAC Conversation. My name is Ted Seelheimer from the University of Houston on behalf of the Rules Education Committee, and wanted to spend some time this month talking about professional development. This is the time of year in our industry, not just in compliance, but athletics in general, where a lot of people are not only thinking about their next jobs, but kind of about professional advancement in general. And so wanted to bring together some triple threats, folks who are senior compliance administrators, are part of their executive administrative staffs at their schools, as well as members of the NAAC Professional Development Committee. So with me today first is Jessica Rio, the Executive Senior Associate AD and SWA at Temple University, as well as Paul Perrier, the Executive Senior Associate AD for Competitive Excellence at the University of Southern California. So both you guys, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's just an honor to be here with Jessica.
Well, with that, then per Paul's request, Jessica, we'll start with you. One of the things that we were thinking about is, both of you have progressed through as compliance administrators and now into senior roles. Have there been any guiding principles on what jobs to pursue or specific types of work that you've sought after or types of jobs in order to get where you are today?
I think that for me in particular, I have always kind of lived by the, volunteer for things that are kind of outside my comfort zone, because I want to get more experience doing a lot of different things, not just compliance work, because I think it's a broad spectrum job. I think that in athletics compliance, you have to be able to really deal with every person in every department at every level at different times throughout your career. And so you could be talking to, your athletic trainer one day and your head football coach the next day. And so when I have taken the position of, like I said, volunteering as a guiding principle for me, like getting involved in other areas and other things, I develop relationships with a lot of the people in all the different areas within athletics. And because of that, I think it's been easier, or it was easier, to do my job when it came down to it. So I think that's probably a guiding principle for me.
Yeah. To jump in, I'd echo that. Be a sponge, take in every opportunity you can. There's always ways to grow. And one great thing about compliance is you're working with every department. So you probably get opportunities or different items that others might not have just through your natural connections with others. But two guiding principles I've always looked at when considering professional development is, athletics can be very transient. It's a lot of movement all the time. You always see about this person going there, openings here and there. So I've always appreciated the saying, be where your feet are, and always keep focused on what you're doing right now. Because if you can solve problems, be a great teammate, add value to an organization, you'll always have opportunities, whether that's where you are or at other schools. So I just think don't lose focus that your best opportunity to advance is doing your current role at a really high level. And in the end, your best advocates are going to be the people you work with, coaches who you've worked with. Jess was talking about trainers, people who go to other schools who, when those schools are looking for people, like, word gets out if you're doing a good job and you're valued as a partner. The relationships you create now will build opportunities down the road. And then I think the second guiding principle I've always really focused on is be intentional on working with and for the right people. Be less concerned about the logo, on your chest, and more about the teammates you'll be working with. If you're looking at an opportunity, do the homework on the supervisor chain, your department structure, the senior staff, who you'll be working with. I think it's difficult to succeed if you're not happy where you are, enjoying what you're doing. So do your research on the culture, the leadership style. What phase of the compliance department or athletic department in? Are they building? Are they maintaining? Is there room to bring in new ideas and growth? A lot of people in compliance like to get sport administration. They see that as a natural progression. I think the skill sets we developed set us up well to do that. But don't go to a school expecting that if your supervisor doesn't have that same responsibility. So really look at what that is. And then look at who's on the staff. Some individuals are just naturally more devoted to mentoring and developing your career, whether that's networking, compliance skills, administration skills. There's no right or wrong way to mentor, but there's just different ways. So look at where people have gone from the school you're going to. Yeah. I can always talk from my experience. I was very fortunate to get an opportunity oversee the compliance staff at Rutgers University. But I was very intentional to do my research. And a big reason I took that position was because of Kate Hickey was the SWA. And for those who've been around compliance for a while in college athletics, and Kate Hickey is an icon. I mean, she's a founding member of NAAC. She was a Frank Kerr Award winner, stellar reputation as administrator. So I knew there was going to be support and a mentor there. So do your research, make sure you know who you're working for, who you're working with, be intentional about it. And then I just say, really focus on what you're doing now, where you are, because that's what's going to provide opportunities.
Right. Well, kind of building off of that, I mean, obviously talking about what you can do to make sure that you're finding yourself in the right spot. Is there, Paul, anything that you think people should keep in mind to make sure as they're assessing opportunities internally or externally, how to know whether they're a viable candidate for getting that next job?
Yeah, I think assessing viability is, I mean, one thing is you can look at who's been in that role in the past, you know, what's allowed that person to succeed. And, you know, honestly, I mean, the best part of networking is just picking up the phone and calling someone. If Jessica's hiring someone, there's nothing wrong with calling Jessica and be like, hey, Jessica, I saw the posting. I'm interested. What do you need? What are you looking for? Like, is there an alignment between that? I don't think anyone's going to turn down a phone call from someone who might be interested in joining their team. You know, talk to peers, talk to, you know, different institutions or in the same conference. But I also think, you know, when you're looking at opportunities, look for positions where you think you can grow. Mm-hmm. You know, if you're bylaw specific and, you know, you've done here, don't look to go to a school just to do recruiting, change the logo on your chest like that. To me, that doesn't necessarily make sense to progress. Right. Look more so what you can learn. You know, one of the best decisions I ever made was coming to USC in 2009 when, you know, we were going through the OJ Mayo, Reggie Bush majors. And, you know, I left the NCAA internship and people thought I was crazy telling me, don't go there. It's a mess. It's the best opportunity to learn. I mean, we're things, and I was able to do things with Ellen Ferris's leadership that I never would have done at any other school. It's really helped me, you know, develop my compliance philosophy, my philosophy towards higher ed and education and athletics within it. And, you know, so just really think about what you're going to get out of that. And your viability for that is really what skill set have you developed to make you succeed in that position? How can you position yourself to sell that? So yeah, do a lot of research and don't be scared of positions that on the outside might look tough, because you probably might actually learn more than an institution that seems to be fine-tuned and running well.
Gotcha. So Jessica, is Paul right? Make sure to call you when a job's open in your office.
Any job, not just Temple, any job.
That's right, any job. No, what I would say though, to echo kind of a little bit on what Paul said, is to rely on your network too. You know, the people that you work with every day have the best view of who you are, right? And so in this business, we all know somebody knows somebody that can get information on the job and or the position. And so, you know, understand that. Well, the other thing that I would say too is don't apply for a job that's like 6 levels above the job that you have right now, right? I think sometimes I see resumes for people when they send stuff and I'm like, what makes you think that you're qualified for this job? So make sure that you're matching those things with your skill set and your ability to do the job as you kind of move through this process. But it's just interesting to me how many people I see that are not prepared. So I just, you know, I try and make sure that when I'm applying for a role myself, that I know somebody who either knows someone for that, you know, that can kind of give me some background, or that is gonna talk me up to the people that are interviewing and hiring for the position. I have been the beneficiary of almost, I think, every single job that I've had has come from a connection that I've made through someplace else. And so, you know, and to Paul's point too, is when I got the job at the University of Miami, you know, in that ability to grow, I had no compliance experience at all. None. And I walked into the University of Miami a year after they were coming off of, they were at the end of the first year of probation for what people wanted them to have, the death penalty. Right. So to talk about an experience of learning and growing, you know, I got all that in, I mean, very real time, very quickly. And so if you're averse to that, there are certain places that you shouldn't be. So, again, do your research when it comes to taking your next step is what I would say.
Well,
Yeah, I'd also, sorry, Ted, one thing I add, and it's a bit of a tangent, but something triggered with Jessica is, if you apply for a position and you get an interview, even if you might not think you're ready for it, and if you don't get it, don't be so, like, I know people get so invested, everyone does, when you're invested, when you already think about, oh, what's it gonna like to live there? Where am I gonna eat? Like that stuff, that's fine, that's normal. But don't feel it's a lost opportunity if you don't get the job. Because one thing I'll say, if USC is hiring for a new role, Scott Simon oversees our compliance department. He's going to pick up and ask people like, hey, who have you recently interviewed? Who did really well? What did you like about them? It's such a small network that your experience interviewing with school X might lead you to interview with school Y and get an opportunity there. That's just the way our business works. I think it's great that you can do that. So I think always understand that when you're talking, if it doesn't work out, feel like you're talking to the masses while identifying the one school you're working with, but just know that what you're saying can really help lead you to different opportunities if it doesn't work out. So don't feel like it's the end of the world, because I know it can be really tough especially as you progress down a progress or an opportunity doesn't work out,
right.
That there's still a lot of good that can come from the challenge.
Yeah. One of the things that has come up throughout my career is obviously, the thought of applying for a job for the experience, right? And I think that's the other side of it. It's not just the experience of going through the interview process and meeting people, but then it's that next step, and you do a good enough job here. Yeah, you may not get that job, but like you said, it's gonna connect you, or maybe just give you, a little bit more insight into what that's going to be the next time you apply for something. I didn't have this, so I need to do this in my career, or I need to think about things differently this way. Or it may be school specific. I think to Jessica, what she mentioned earlier in terms of understanding where you're going, don't apply 6 steps ahead. What it means to be a director or an associate athletic director can mean different things at different schools. And so again, understanding where you're applying is just as important, so you can understand that fit. It's not a set hierarchy of roles at every school. Well, Jessica, coming back to you, one of the things that you kind of hear along the way is that it's easier to advance by moving on to a new school instead of necessarily having those opportunities in-house. Any thoughts on that as a truism or not?
Yeah, so I often have that conversation with young professionals in the business, is that sometimes you got to move on to move up.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing unless you do it like every 2 years, because I'll tell you this, is that I won't hire somebody who I have seen hopscotch from school to school to school. Like, it's a red flag for me. So I think you have to do that with practicality. I think you have to do that with planning. I think you have to, again, read your room as to who you're working with. So if you take a job with a young administrator who's just been hired, chances are in 2 years, you're probably not going to move up if you're the second in charge of that department. But the other thing is that, while you're in that department, and I'll go back to what Paul had referenced earlier, is, grow where you are.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with staying in a place for 4 or 5 or 6 years and growing and taking promotions, incremental promotions, learning the business, learning a full cycle of student athletes through a compliance, through that compliance lens.
Mm-hmm.
The most growth that I had was once I stayed at one place for more than 4 years, because you see the cycle through. You see the student athletes come in and you see them leave, and graduate. So, I think that's where I would, how I would kind of address the moving on to move up. I think you have to do it at certain points in your career, but I think if you do it too often, you're going to be labeled as somebody who's going after the name on the jersey, right? So be practical and be mindful of what that means.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jessica has a lot of great points. I've never written anyone off in the hiring process because they've been at a bunch of schools, but it's definitely a question. It's because, when you're hiring someone, you want to bring someone in, you want to train them, you want them to grow. You don't want to have to hire for them again in a year, because, it's an arduous process. It's a very important process. The people you bring in, defines your office success, your department success. So if you're investing in finding that person, the last thing you want to do is be worried about them leaving a year later. But I think Jessica brought a great point too, that you learn a lot by seeing systems run, right? Especially in compliance, like a lot of the monitoring pieces, rules education. Like if you're there for a short period of time, you don't really see the benefit because it takes time to progress. And you really, while you might see some things, you don't get the most out of your experience at certain schools if you're looking to jump. And I also think, people get very worried again about titles. I'm a coordinator, I want to be an assistant director. I'm a this, I want to be that. But a lot of times what will make you best suited for your next spot is the experience you've got at the school you're at, not necessarily your title. I don't think just because someone's an assistant AD instead of a director title that you're going to get picked for a position. It's more so, what have you done where you've been at? So I think it's important to be selective and not just focus on, because look, let's be honest, if you come into compliance as a coordinator, you can probably progress to an assistant AD in 4 years if you really want to jump to wherever it is you catch a hot potato. But does that really set you up for long-term success? And I'd argue it doesn't. It can, but I'd argue most likely doesn't, because a thing Ted's talked about, Jessica talked about, I've talked about, is relationships. It's hard to build relationships where you're not somewhere where you're actually rooted and invested. And that's what I question when I see people who've moved a lot.
Yep. Well, my last question for you guys is, thinking about what sort of resources are available. Is there anything specifically that you guys could speak to in terms of the professional development committee or other resources in general that people could look to when thinking about career advancement and professional development?
You want to go, Paul?
No, Jessica Reel always gets to go first.
I would just say utilizing the NAAC, the ACE mentoring, the ACE mentoring group and the programs that come through NAAC, they've helped me through my career. And again, building that network. I know we talk about that. We touch on it. It's building that network isn't just getting a business card from somebody and sending a thank you note. It's intentionally talking to people. I mean, Paul and I we joke around and we've known each other. We met through other people, right? I mean, and so we've built a relationship just over time. We've never worked together, but we have a lot of mutual people in this business that have kind of brought us together. And I'm very appreciative of that, because those are the things that, like, I feel like I can call Paul and ask questions, and we've been on committees together. So again, when I said earlier about volunteering and doing things that are kind of outside your comfort zone or things that you're not really normally doing, they help you in this process. But I think NAAC has been very intentional about putting those things out there for people, and taking advantage of that, I think is beneficial to career aspirations in this, whether it be staying in compliance or moving up and being in sports supervisory roles or senior level administration roles while still maintaining a compliance tie. Like I believe that you never get rid of compliance. Yeah. Once you're in it, it's like you're in it forever. And every AD is just going to be like, oh, you did compliance. Okay. You're going to oversee compliance, or you're going to be involved in compliance, or they're going to come to you for stuff. So I don't think that you can ever get away from it, which is, I think, a good thing. And that's why NAAC to me is very valuable.
Yeah, I'd say it's what NAAC has done during the pandemic and using Zoom and some of these to provide different types of programs has been phenomenal. I think, Laura and Alicia, who oversee the professional development committee, have done a very good job of that. I think the ACE mentoring program is an excellent opportunity, but there's limited spots, and our membership's at an all-time high, which speaks volumes to the value people see in it. But I would encourage people to take control of their own professional development. But the biggest value in NAAC is the network itself. And membership is to help each other. People want to connect. They want to learn from another. They want to grow through connections. So I get excited. I love it when I get calls from people who said, hey, I got your name from someone else, suggests I reach out and just connect. People are always going to answer a phone call. And NAAC's a great way to do that, whether it's through serving on communities, whether it's just getting to, be on a Zoom with other people, see what questions they're asking, but you have to be comfortable picking up your phone and just reaching out. I mean, that's the reason NAAC exists, is to have each other available to one another. And higher ed is a people business. So I think the more athletic departments, the more compliance staffs, the more that individuals can build synergy with one another, creates a more enjoyable work experience and a better experience for our student athletes. So I think I would encourage people just to, if you need me, especially Jessica, because she's the go-to, like just call her, email her, whoever it is, build that relationship. And that's the platform NAAC provides. And I think sometimes people just come into the business, get a little hesitant. It's like, gosh, I don't know, Ted, Ted's a big deal. I don't know if I want to bother him. Bother him, email him, talk to him. That's how you learn and grow, is through talking and connecting with others. So
obviously a common thread with everything that we've been talking about is those relationships in the community, be it on your campus or within the compliance professionals themselves. And the thing that Paul has taught me is to use Jessica's cell phone number. So I will be putting that as a scroll at the bottom of this here later.
Wow.
Make sure you give her personal and work. We want to make sure no opportunities missed.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Keep 2 phones when you're working in compliance.
Who says burners are just for coaches? That's for sure.
That's right.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys sharing your perspective and giving us a little bit of insight into how you guys think about this area. So thank you guys for your time. And thanks again for everybody for joining us for another NAAC Conversation. We'll see you next time. Take care.